the perspective to take on new media is to realize that it's still in its infancy in 2013, and that at some point in this decade it's going to become more seamless for people to use easily and access easily in a way that you can take it with you anywhere. Kind of like portable radio really revolutionized the radio industry back in the late 1950s. Pocket radios. Kind of like how now pocket video cameras made by Sony are kind of what revolutionized the whole web industry, and that's where a lot of the YouTube home videos come from, is little devices like this, which I bought for $125 at Best Buy in 2012, and I've made about, seems like a couple hundred movies with this so far that are on YouTube, and they're pretty decent as far as video and audio quality. So the cost keeps dropping for quality media. What this is all leading up to, I think, is everyone's going to have an opportunity to express themselves as a media host or create their own media, and it will become a lot more normal than people might realize. Used to be people like me were in the radio industry back in the 1980s, 1990s, and that was considered very special because less than 1% of the population ever got to be on the radio. And if you look at a city like Sacramento, which at that time had about 1.5 million, now it's up to over 2 million as far as the metropolitan area. At that time, probably less than 0.01% of people in Sacramento ever made it on the radio. And the sad thing is, a lot of those people never even had lived in Sacramento before they were on the radio. They were, you know, they were pulled from other cities within radio chains. I myself started out in Sacramento, so I got to be in my own hometown. But new media has really changed everything to where anyone could kind of become a media star now on at least a small scale. Say like for 1,000 people, you could have a fan base for 500 to 1,000 people and actually make stuff happen. Actually create revenue streams with an audience that size just by using social networks like Facebook, and perhaps your own website has podcasting or some type of media streaming on it. As far as internet radio goes, I actually think we're still in the infancy. I think we have not yet seen the ultimate model for internet radio. Now, I do know some internet streaming companies, some networks that have gotten off the ground and have done a decent job at delivering those streams seamlessly to people through apps. But I think the actual future of internet radio is going to be a lot more customized, a lot more user-friendly in the sense that it won't be so hard to program your own radio station, picking each individual song. The one thing that's got to change is the royalties involved with music. It basically people are complaining now that they got 1 million spins, 1 million plays on Pandora, which is the #1 internet radio streaming company at the moment. 1 million plays equals $16 in royalties. Okay, that's not fair. In radio, once I got a check for $350 for not even a fraction, I mean, for actually a very small fraction of 1 million plays. I mean, I think it was something like, let me just calculate it for a minute. It might have been 300 spins. 300 spins on the radio, and I got a check for like $300. That was back in 1989 for my hit, Waves on the West Coast. local hit in Sacramento. So, I mean, and it was only played on one station, or only one reporting BMI station. It was actually played on about a dozen stations, but not as much as on Quad, where I worked, where I was allowed to play my own song a bunch of times. But getting back to new media, I really have not seen the model yet that blows me away. There's iTunes Radio coming out in the fall of 2013 that was just recently announced in June. And it almost seems like Apple's playing follow the leader this time. They normally are the leader and the innovator of new technology, at least back in the Steve Jobs era. But in the Tim Cook era, they've kind of been a follower. I mean, Apple Maps, that wasn't a new idea, and it wasn't as good as Google Maps. And now iTunes Radio is basically a streaming model based on advertising. And it's free for users of iPads and iPhones and all that. But still, it doesn't impress me as the ultimate model, which would be you get to program your own songs and pick your own DJs and pick your own weather reports and news reports, and say you just put all these streaming programs into your playlist, and then you don't worry about it. Maybe you pick it all once, and you pick your library once, you pick your components such as weather and announcers and news and all that. You pick all that once, and then all that updates on its own as regular components in your playlist. I wish that would happen. That's my dream for new media. And another thing is indie artists aren't really getting a fair deal in all this online radio stuff. It's still, the focus is on major label stuff. They really dominate everything, and they're still dominating sales, even though the music industry has just crumbled since 1999. It really hasn't had that many, any good years since 1999, which was their peak year, best year ever in terms of sales. So what needs to happen is platforms that promote indie music, popular platforms that can promote themselves and the music on the platforms. And there are a couple, maybe who knows, a dozen ways to do that haven't been done yet. And there's always going to be a better way to do things. But a few ideas I had were like slicethepie.com actually pays people to listen to music, to listen to new music. It's only pennies, but I think there could be a model a million times better than that pays people better money to listen to new music, that would create a super popular platform, and by virtue of that alone would start to give exposure to the music being listened to through that. Another idea is create a platform for work for hire situations for musicians, and that would bring employers and musicians together. And then just another idea would be just to have lots of different niche websites that are all interconnected, that all promote each other, that specialize in certain niches of music. So those are my ideas for ahead of the curve media. I'm still waiting for it to happen, and hopefully someone brilliant who has the capital and resources watches this video and is inspired by these ideas.